Hello, friends. It's John Connor, third of episode 184 of Shadow and Flame of Magic, your premier Kitty Pryde Lockheed Magic podcast. And today we're going to review Ultimate Wolverine 7, kick off Fantastic Four month here at SNFWM with Fantastic Four versus X-Men number 1 of 4. X-Men Hellfire Vigil, the Prelude to Future Past, and X-Men 19. So let's get into it. So Ultimate Wolverine 7, on my top 10 comics of the year, I've been just making sure number 10, r- spot 10 has been reserved for whatever the recent Ultimate Wolverine issue was. But I had to knock this one up to, I think, third now. So I think it's like Exceptional Magic Ultimate Wolverine 7 as Ultimate Kitty Pride, or we learn her code name this episode issue. Um, gets a spotlight in it. I'm gonna officially just add it to my pull list and just be happy every issue. Um, Logan is, and spoilers everyone for last week's comics. He, um, Logan's up on the top of whatever the opposition's bank headquarters are, and he's, just deep in thought, and then Kitty sees him and he goes, "Hey, Kitty." So we immediately knew that she's at least going by Kitty. Because I think Gambit or Black Widow referenced her as Catherine the previous issues. So I was just like, oh, maybe she's Ultimate Catherine here. Makes sense. It's not a darker universe, but it's definitely different enough that um, anything could be going on. But they talk about how he can't remember anything, and but all of his friends do, and they've clearly forgiven him, but he can't forgive himself for what's clearly the physical and emotional damage he left on everyone. Which I sort of like that twist on the old Amnesia, where he can't remember his history, and then we, the readers, are trying to figure out, but the twist is that everyone knows his history. It's just him who doesn't. And so it's either, the characters bring it up or he just has to experience it one way or the other. We see Kitty calm him and Sabretooth down as Logan's extremely annoyed at Sabretooth as he told him to kill him back in the day if he ever broke bad. And then Sabretooth's like, well, I defeated you and I saw an opportunity to not kill you, so you should be thanking me. And that does seem to be, if someone can choose not to kill you, they probably should, right? I hope every day that no one's even having the thought to kill me, but here we are. Um, and so we see her give a big speech about the importance of, friendship and forgiveness and moving on with your life and recognizing, redemption arcs are a thing. And so I was just like, I love this. And then I was able to reach, or not reach out, AIPT, where I would get most of my, or I get all my comic book news from. They posted something in Blue Sky, and I was like, hey, this is my favorite issue of the series thus far. And then the writer, Corden, I believe, um, responded. So I was like, oh, hey, this is great. And then had a little fun back and forth. So I was like, hey, this is fun talking to curators, trying to be mindful of their time. Um, Trying to think. And then Beast kills everyone. There's a mission. We learn that Mikhail Rasputin, another fun twist, is the good sibling, whereas his sibling, Colossus and Magic, are clearly the bad siblings. And then he's going by the name Archangel, so that's interesting. And we know there's a future issue where Archangel's gonna fight the Wolverine, so that's fun. Um, and so now we know why that might even happen. I am anxious that at one point Logan's gonna turn, like, get flipped back to Winter Soldier mode and then flash and dash. So hopefully Kitty survives that moment. Because if she dies in here, even with magic being around, I'm gonna be like, I feel done here. Um, I mean, that's how I felt with Nightcrawler, and then so now I'm just like, well, they killed off Nightcrawler and Mystique, so clearly they can kill people here, and who knows what happens. Um, but that's all it'll take for me to bail out. And so then Beast says there's a new mission. They're gonna go on this. They got code names or Renmi, who looks very older now. Like at first, I thought he was Kitty's age, like maybe mid 30s, maybe. But now he looks like mid 40s. So I'm like, all right, I don't quite love the difference here, but sure. And so he says Kitty and Remy are a team, otherwise known as Gambit and Sprite, which I feel like the copyright artist's office must not have loved that as like you're going to Sprite, because I would have gone with Shadowcat, like a name that Marvel clearly owns, can use, and it's not like 616 Kitty's using it, so it would have been easier. And now they make an action figure, they got a car Marvel Sprite, so it's like, all right, don't make any jokes about pulling your tab. Am I right, everyone? Um, and then, but like, was Ariel token spoken for, or did Disney go like, "Hey, don't use that one. Like, we have plans for Ariel." I was like, "I bet you do have plans for Ariel." And then there's a team of uh Black Widow and someone, and so that's clearly Black Widow and the other person. Beast is going on a team, and I'm forgetting who his partner is, but he gives himself the nickname Beast. And then Logan's just like, "Hey, I'm on a team. Where's my code name?" So it's an interesting idea that they weren't using code names before Logan broke bad, but now they are using code names. And then someone mentions how his hair looks like a Wolverine, so it's like, oh, is he gonna go by the Wolverine perhaps? Maybe. Or maybe they don't have Sprite in this universe either, but seems weird that the maker would be like, no lemon lime drinks in this universe. But who knows? He may have. He is diabolical that way. But yeah, great issue. I loved it. So now let's get to Fantastic Four versus the X-Men. And this came out in February of 1987. So I would have been five in a month, depending on when this came out. Writer Chris Claremont, penciler John Nove, inker Terry Austin, letter Tom Orshinchowski. Let me just- letter or colorist Glynis Oliver, who I love. So it's like my favorite writer, favorite letter, and favorite colorist. I mean, Terry Austin's a legend himself. Editor Ann Nocenti, consulting editors Mike Carlin and Don Daly, who I suspect are the Fantastic Four editors. And then editor-in-chief Jim Shooter, who I should reference or state that he passed this last week. And so I was like, oh man, I should make a. But I'm like, oh, I'm already doing the Fantastic Four. And I was like, I'm pretty sure he was the editor-in-chief in this era. So here we are. I want to say I bought these from Mile High Comics. And so I have a near mint sticker on it. So that's fun for me. Mm. And so Stanley presents Are You Sure? This is the land of lost hope, a realm of nightmare, a place of utter unending madness dominated by the temple of despair. And you can follow along on my TikTok and YouTube channels at Jacko SII. We just hit 500 followers on TikTok, and just to timestamp this, we're at 583 on YouTube. So we're on a race to 600 for either of these. I'd love to see growth on either of them. As much real as a dream, there is nowhere more terrible because it mixes what was with what is, to bring forth the shape of what might yet be, the future of a lost and lonely little boy. And we see Reed Richards holding a defeated invisible woman in his arms as Franklin's crying. And then We see Logan holding someone in his arms who I thought was She-Hulk, but maybe that's Kitty. But it doesn't really make any sense it being Kitty. And then he's saying how he killed the Fantastic Four and now he's killed the X-Men. And at first I thought it was Ileana in the back of this on a tree, but I bet it's just Dazzler. Mm. And then Reed somehow kills Logan, and Franklin's just losing his mind, as he would. And then Reed Richards is grabbing his journal from the state university, and he dons the Doctor Doom helmet and turning into Doctor Doom, which wakes Franklin up, which is a fun uh flash. Well, it won't be a flash forward, but a story concept where Chris Claremont, during his run of Fantastic Four, one of my favorite runs of the team, I'll go number one, the Mark Waid legend Mike Ringro run, and then Chris Claremont and Salvador LaRocca number two. Um, and just Claremont gets to do a bunch of things with the team, but he turns Reed Richards into Doctor Doom there. So that's just a fun, idea to play with. He also does some Captain Britain stuff, and Kitty shows up for uh as a chess piece in one issue. In the next issue, we see that she hears Franklin's cry of distress. And really not being the best father, tells Frank or calls Sue to tell her that Franklin is upset and that she should deal with it. So it's like, ugh. There are moments when having a mom who can create and manipulate an invisible force field is just about the most incredibly wonderful thing in the whole universe. Even when she's a little mad at you. And she scooped him up in like a little carriage. And Franklin's like, what? Let's see here, Walker D's 11, so he's probably like 6 here. And he had a bad dream, so she hugs him, making him feel better. He references a journal, and Sue's like, I think I've seen that. And then Franklin starts crying as soon as he sees it. Sunrise over a starkly beautiful windswept chunk of rock jutting out of the Atlantic just above Cape Wrath off the north coast of Scotland. Margaret Taggart came to Muir Island years ago to establish her secret mutant research center. Now the X-Men, the unsung band of outlaw mutant heroes, have followed seeking refuge. We see Havoc walking up to Rogue, who's trying to fix the Blackbird. So that's just interesting to see them interact, which, as a guy who's not the big Outback fan, like this feels special to me, but I'm like, oh, like if you wanted to, you could read like 50 issues of these guys, these two interacting. Within the centers, oh, and I made a read along video, but also I always like on a Saturday morning post one, and then on Sundays just literally do the only the panels. And so this is the page from the second video, the short. Within the center's crowded infirmary lie the pitiful few survivors of the Marauders Massacre, so named for the band of killers who ranged through the tunnels beneath New York City, not long ago slaughtering every mutant they came across. For details, see X-Men 210 to 213 and N. Among the wounded, X-Men Nightcrawler and Colossus, the one deep in coma, the other trapped in his armored form, unable to move or shift back to a human state. Next door, from the life support module, is the third X-Men casualty, Shadowcat, locked in a phasing mode, transformed literally into a living ghost. Her only effective means of communication is through the team's telepath Psylocke. And it's this classic traditional Betsy with the purple hair and um pre-Ninja days, if you will. Her visit over, today's examination complete. Storm, the X-Men's leader, Wolverine, and Moira McTaggart take their leave. Pretty Pride is glad to see them go. She tries to be cheerful to buck up their spirits, but it's hard. When she and they know she's dying, and there's nothing that they can do to save her. Myers contacting Magneto, who's still in New York, and they're thinking about calling Reed Richards because he should be able to figure it out. Meanwhile, speeding up on the Minch from the port of Olapool with a week's worth of groceries are two of the quartet who recently joined the team. Alison Brer, the Dazzler, and an enigmatic other dimensional visitor known only as Longshot. We'll go a little faster now because this is like a double-length comic. And so they're chatting about just hanging out together. That's what Dazzler does. Takes sound and transmutes it into light of all types of colors, intensifies. This morning she glows as warm and bright as the sun as she comes across a person. They come across someone who's stranded in the water. Hearing that, the fisherman smiles as if strangely sinisterly that is precisely what he wants. Meanwhile, as the dawn rises over the Scotland night, still cloaks the Manhattan headquarters of the world's greatest superhero team. Franklin Richards is tucked away snugly and soundly in his bed. And if anyone dreams visits him tonight, his mother prays they're gentle ones. Because Franklin at this time, his mutant power is that he can enter people's dreams when he's dreaming. This does not seem restful to me. Better for better, the cruelest nightmare. And this awful reality she can no longer deny. So she's read the journal as she confronts him. While he sleeps, Franklin projects his astral form to the living room. He runs to grab the book and run away, but his image form has no solidity. It can affect the real world, and in these heavy shadows he can hardly be seen, as all he can do is watch, mesmerized by what's happening, as the mouse is by the hunting cobra. Downtown in Greenwich Village at Raglan's coffee shop, the air is filled with music and conversation, the smell of good, rich food. Downstairs is a bistro and some of the best jazz in the city. Up a flight is an equally renowned reference library, a body that research anything here at any hour, day or night. And She-Hulk is there. Um, she's being delivered some snacks, so that's nice. And then someone's smoking in the library. She-Hulk confronts them. Of course, it's Ben Grimm looking for a book about federal aviation regulations. And so they confront each other playfully, and then they hear a ruckus and a chaboom. So they go there. They're both their clothes get torn. So he's wearing his Fantastic Four briefs, which I always prefer my Ben Grimm in pants and boots. She-Hulk has, of course, lost her outer jacket, and her undershirt is being very torn, which seems unnecessary. And then Magneto comes to help out the building's collapse. And since he helped them, maybe they will help him. And the Human Torch shows up. With Johnny Storm's aid, the four of them working together, the crisis is soon past. Later, at the Fantastic Four headquarters at Four Freedoms Plaza, after Magneto's repeated explanations for his presence, Reese is unsure if he can actually help, and Suze has her doubts about it. Later still, high above the Atlantic, and so we see the team is Reed, She-Hulk, Thing, and the Human Torch as and Magneto. So we got five here. Reed's having his doubts. Muir Island. And so Thing and She-Hulk are taking his giant machine out, and Reed is full of self-doubt. And Franklin's dream self has tagged along. I want to say his name is Tattletale. I think that gets more used in Power Pack than anything. Logan doubts Reed's going to be able to do anything. For the rest of the day, Mr. Fantastic conducts an exhaustive examination of his patient and makes the final adjustments to his equipment. Then, at last, Reed comes out. Forgive me, Dr. McTaggart. There's nothing you guys you can do. And Magneto just loses his mind on Reed. And Johnny flames on as he does, and then Logan punches him in the gut. No claws though, but now a little snick snick. He's coming after Reed and dives at him. So you save her, bub, or you die. Next issue, Truce and Consequences. And that, everyone, was Fantastic Four versus X-Men #1. So let's see what else came out last week. This was actually a pretty big week for comic books. The X-Men Hellfire Vigil comes out, and I spent so many pages, like opening pages, to scanning the place for Magic and later Kitty Pryde. And because the visual is taking place at a Dazzler concert in Chicago, which immediately is like, well, I should relax because Kitty Pryde's going to be all over this, of course. And then we see a bunch of mutants is all hanging out in New York at the Krakoa treehouse in Central Park. Or I think it's just the treehouse. I don't think there's any parts of Krakoa. Um, and they were scanning and scanning, and then by page four, we finally see Cyclops get confronted by Psylocke, saying, because he's not going to go, he's all ball humbug, which is how I usually am with fireworks on July 4th. I'm just not a big fireworks guy. And then as a adult, like fireworks are expensive, and you like even if you're going like I'm going to spend $100, it's still like, oh, I bought three things. And I know it's my collector mentality, but I'm always just like, if I spend something that expensive, I want to. I guess this is me saying $100 fireworks is expensive. I want it to last, to be cool, and then either it just putters out or it's just like, all right, what do we do now? Man, I don't know. I'm just a bit of a stooge when it comes to fireworks. Because even New Year's Eve, we did move low, so we're closer in town, so we were able to see fireworks from our porch that we rent, and we got to see the East Helena fireworks, and then something going on in the valley. And so that was just then Walker D and I would for a nice little stroll to the hospital and just use their giant empty parking lot to get a better view as we had trees blocking the view. So it was a nice time. And because of how negative I am about fireworks, my son just kept being like, "Oh man, look at all the fireworks! You're having a good time." I'm just like, "All right, we don't really comment on the good time. We just experience the good time." But it makes me realize how negative I am about fireworks. Anyways, and so Scott's being ball humbug about the Hellfire visuals as he's just like, I don't want to celebrate, the passing of a great era we had, and now we're stuck in this era. And I gotta say, this issue is very user friendly. Like, if you want to know, like, this is gonna be one of those things where Travis Starham's appearances database is just like at one point, every single character is gonna have X-Men Hellfire Vigil 2025, or at least the majority of villains. But Psylocke's gonna go. Everyone's wearing very cute, cool outfits. Magic's outfits like all black, showing some of her midriff, and I think like a sleeve and one arm with no sleeve, and a symmetrical design, I guess would be the word. He said not confidently. Her fancy headdress, spiky things, whatever those things are called, the magic hair thingies got reflected on her shoulder. So that was fun to be like, oh, that's a cute design. Um, and so she teleports the team everywhere. First they go to New York and then they go to Chicago. We catch up with Colossus through Magic, who, some people made a contention about how she had to teleport him to Limbo to get him in a fancy suit. They do explain why he was dressed as Tank, as his gloves gave him cool tools, and then his helmet was protected. His mind was protected by the helmet, sort of like Magneto helmet, because he's been mind controlled for the bulk of the Krakoa era, and so he's just like, yeah, I now want to do it. So we get that cute moment. She goes to Chicago, and the whole time I'm like, well, they're in Chicago. Let me scan all the pages, and then we see Bronze and Melee and Axel. So it's like, hey, this is the fun thing. Bronze is looking for Dazzler's opening act merch, but they don't have anything. We do see some cross-team relationships, which is cute. Cyclops, Alaskan X-Men, Idole, and Louisiana X-Men member Ransom are making out, so that's cute. We see Sophie from NYX, which the creators were like, oh, we should have called it NYX Men, because then it would have stood for New York X-Men, and that would have been, you know. And they always say titles with the word X-Men in them sell better, so it's like, oh yeah. And then they would have been Volume One instead of NYX Volume Two. Not like that matters to anyone, but big on nerds like me who just like to note it. Um, and Sophie's looking for a friend, but we get the impression it's just friendly. And it turns out she has been playing a video game that was hinted in NYX. And it turns out she's been playing with Axel. And they just hug, and that's pretty much it. And then finally we turn the page and Iceman is hanging out with Kitty Pryde at her tavern that she works at. So good to know that she's still working there. I do love how I immediately knew we were in Carmen Carnero pages. But it was just like we just were in good hands. I was like, all right. And then I felt like, oh, I did not have to be scanning all these pages. Like she's purposely took the night to work there, which I always think if you're gonna work retail or in a restaurant on holidays, they should ask you to volunteer. And then if no one volunteers, then it's like, well, then you just close because yeah, you don't want bad service on, you know, when you should have been closed. Uh, and then Bobby's like, hey, Kitty, you can, everyone's there. You can talk to Rachel or dot dot dot. And Kitty's like, I don't want to talk to anyone. And so that's how we get the explanation that Kitty must have reached out to Rachel and Magic and be like, hey, I'm not going, so no need to come to me, because Magic clearly would have gone to her. Um, what else happened? Dazzler got arrested, which wasn't great because she just peacefully got arrested, but you know, this whole prison scenario is bad, and it must have been gotten all the criticism got to go someone because she's like, hey, everyone, I write about prison a bunch, and so we have a plan. This is Act Two. We're going to read to Act Three pretty soon. But it's like, all right, because it is silly that like Cyclops has a whole Hellions team who can clearly be called and then go wreck 20 Sentinel faculties in the matter of 10 minutes. And so it's like, well, you can easily go to the prison and destroy it. We even see Banshee talk to Siren, who's like all collared up and was let out for the night as a test, but it's like I feel like you can easily just break her collar and then be like, she's ours now. Like, haha. So it's just not a great storyline with the prison. Um, and there's references to how the federal government has like lasers pointed at all the mutants, and it's like, all right, but do you? Because I feel like there's several mutants you can do force fields. I don't know. It's just something where it's like I can't believe they're just allowing Monet, Siren, Fred Dukes, and whoever else to just remain prisoners. Like it's a lousy situation. Um, and then the 3K X-Men come out and announce, and it's a shame that they didn't take this opportunity to show us who the chairman identity is. Though he looks like Xavier's body with a helmet, but we have Cassandra Nova, so we do not need a bad Xavier on the team. But we saw Wired and we see Asta, who also has a Joseph clone, so he's up to her old tricks again. I still think it's this Nathan Exis Orcus member whose name I always forget. Dr. Statius? Status? Statius. One of those. I don't know. I'm not a Sinister guy, so I was like, all right. I was disappointed that Kitty Pryde's tavern scene did not have Lockheed just hanging out. Like that would have been a fun thing. Especially as we saw in the X-Men the wedding album, the second one, for Kitty's and Colossus's failed marriage, where she's bartending and has Lucky just hanging out on one of the shelves. And he's like, yeah, he's great in taverns. He would have not gotten in the way whatsoever. And so, oh, but the 3K X-Men make a big show about what the planned future for X-Men is, where they're just going to kill all humans, and then by the year 3000, there's zero humans and it's just X-Men or mutants. Hence their name 3K. So I'm like, all right. I should say Comics XF did a great critical analysis of the issue of like six of their members. So that was pretty fun. Um, and they clued me on the 3K significance of their name, where I was like, all right, because I always just thought it was a clever like 3K, like KKK, they're bad people, and then it's just easy shorthand for it. Um, yeah, so I think that's how the issue ends. Oh no, the issue ends with at one point Jean Grey gets teased a future plot of something going on, and then she comes to Earth, and her and Scott have a moment together. So I was like, oh, that's cute. Um, so yeah, that was the X-Men visual. What else came out? Oh yeah, Chris Claremont's Prelude to the Future Past, which was supposed to be it acts as a X-Men Uncanny X-Men 140.5, which was part of the Paragon collection. And so I've always known the Marvel fandom preview of it where they reference Rachel Summers, Nightcrawler, um, a Iron Man. It's like Tony Stark, but it's Tony of like two E's and like a Tony maybe. Anyways, it's a lady Tony Stark. That's fun. I imagine someone can make an argument this is clearly not when he wrote Uncanny X-Men 141 Days of Future Past, where he was like, I bet Rachel's having a secret adventure with Iron Man of all things. But clearly he is, because we have this now in comic book form. But one of the characters they didn't reference was Kate Pride from Days of Future Past, and then the story there that ends with her narrating the story, where I'm like, oh. Like I ordered it anyways because it's Chris Claremont and it's Rachel, so maybe there's a reference to Kitty Pryde, even though fandom is usually pretty great with listing references and mentions, but I'm glad I took a chance on it. And it also reprints 141 and 142, so it works as a complete collection. So, and I was bummed I missed out on the bidding of it because I only learned about it like 2 months later. And by then, collectors was selling it for like $200. And I was like, man, I wonder how much I could have bought. I bought a version of it without, um, getting it secondhand. But it's coming my way. I also pre-ordered the Hellfire Vigil, so that's nice. And Ultimate Wolverine 7. What I did not order was X-Men 19, the final issue, that we're reviewing here quickly. And it's all about Doug. His beautiful wife, Bay, the Blood Moon, and their son, Warlock, or really his best pal. But they make a fun trio, which has a guy who's, a trio of a family. I like that. Um, and then we've learned of the new anti-mutant group called Zero, and just like how the one was during the decimation period, there's one asterisk N asterisk E. This one is Z asterisk E asterisk R asterisk O, which Doug's quick to be like, oh, just like the one program. You're like, yeah, just like that. And it just sounds like it's Orcus all over again, where it's various goons from the different agencies coming together. Um, I was like, sure. Doug and Bay still cannot communicate directly with each other, so it's all vibes. But we understand her, which I don't know if that was always the rule, but it's just fun to see. He is more Doug-like. He is wearing a Coca was for Lovers t-shirt, but it's all in black as opposed to the one we saw in X-Men Volume 635 where it was all white with red letters. I want to say this was black with pink letters. And um so yeah, they're setting up the big apocalypse storyline that I believe is supposed to be in October. We saw the Humberto's Ramos X's on the yard and the X-Men. Cyclops being the only one I could identify, which I had a comment online about, like, I don't think we need a dark X-Men story during these dark times we live in, but here we are. And so I don't know if it's a line ride revamp or not, but revamping the line using Apocalypse is a classic X-Men idea, so we'll just have to see how that goes. And then let's see what comics come out on Wednesday. So yeah, quite a few. We get the Marvel swimsuit special, Friends, Foes, and Rivals that I pre-ordered. I believe I'm getting the Dodderman cover because it has Scott and Jean. I was good. I need to get the cover that has the most mutants on it. Though there were some great ones, like the Mark Brooks surfboard with the ladies had Rogue almost touching Captain Marvel, which is cute. Unless you think about it from Carol's point of view, and it's like not so cute. There was a Spider-Man with Psylocke cover that I was like, if Spider-Man wasn't here, I'd probably buy it. I don't know why those two were even paired together. There was a fourth cover too, but now it's escaping me. And then Wolverine Kitty Pride 4, so that's great. Penultimate issue. Magic 7, which I think we know of 11 coming out now, so we'll see what that's about. Um, it's Jeff Infinity Paws, which I ordered because of Lockheed's definitely in it, so that's great. Uncanny X-Men 17 that saw the preview pages and Kitty Pride's on it, so now that's been on my short list of books I want to get. Next time I go through my comic shop's eBay page. Ultimate Spider-Man Incursion 2, which we know Magic's going to be in part 4, so maybe she'll be in 2. Oh no, she was in part 1 too, so um yeah. Which I'm collecting every Kitty Pride appearance, but I'm like making a wish list on my League of Comic Book Geeks page of just all Magic appearances, but um it's just like her 616 counterpart. She's very popular. Laura Kinney Wolverine 8, and which has just been a solid series, so sure. Yeah, that's 7 comics. So yeah, we'll see um how that works out and see if the swimsuit special has any Kitty Pride or Magic in it. I can only imagine Magic's in it for at least, a page, right? Um, but yeah, that was episode 284 is Shadow and Flame of Magic. I'm going to post on the podcast, the socials, SNFWM on Instagram, Blue Sky, and Twitter. The cover and that page from Kitty Pride appearing. And you can follow me on TikTok and YouTube and Blue Sky at Jacko SII and Twitter, just because that's where the bulk of my followers are. Um, I might be close to 500 on Blue Sky too, but I got over 1,000 on Twitter. So, if I want traction, but I've been trying to make all my new posts on Blue Sky, and then I only respond to things on Twitter. That's sort of the mental break in my head I've been trying to make. But thank you everyone for listening, and I'll talk at you next time. All right, everyone, bye.